Welcome to Belong, Grow, Serve. This is Caralyn, and today I am with Pastor Kate, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about the Stations of the Cross and Holy Week. Hi, Pastor Kate.
Hey there.
So if you'd like to, I'd love to hear a little bit about you.
Okay. My background is I am a retired United Methodist pastor. I'm come out of Northern Illinois. So if any of your listeners are from Chicago area, I had a assignment in the south side of Chicago, and then I retired out of a rural community in the northwest section of Illinois. So I've had very urban and very rural experience. And then when I retired, I came down here as I have some family, and I love Florida, and found TUMC, Tuscaloosa United Methodist Church, about a month later, and loved the combination of the people and the pastor, and I've been here ever since.
And how long ago was that you moved to Florida?
11 years ago.
Okay. Wow.
Can't get rid of me.
I know. All right, so my goal here today is to learn about Stations of the Cross, especially for someone who doesn't know what that is. So can you go into the background of what the Stations of the Cross is?
Surely. The Stations of the Cross are a visual representation of the way of sorrow, the journey that Christ took on his way to the cross. There are many names for it, but for our purposes, I'll call it the way of sorrow. There has been an incredible desire on people's part to visually present that. Even in the early catacombs, the drawings on the walls included line drawings of the crucifixion. Mm-hmm. I mean, people had this incredible desire to visualize this experience. And that has continued through the ages. Around 1450 or thereabouts, the Roman Catholic Church more formalized the stations, and in their particular liturgy, it is 14 stations. And that has stayed fairly uniform within the Catholic Church. At the Reformation, the Lutherans, and the Episcopals, and the Methodists continued to use this Stations of the Cross as part of the representation. The other thing we have to remember is that the printing press didn't come until, what's the date of that? 1545 or thereabouts. Yeah. You know, it's way into our history.
Right.
So how did people tell stories? They told stories by stained glass windows. They told stories by art. And there's something very compelling about the visual. I think, too, that we've rediscovered Stations of the Cross because now we understand more and more about the need for interaction, the need for reflection. And I think we are regaining that tradition. And that's why, and also in this church, we are blessed with artists and people who are willing to share their talents with us in ways that allow us to have really incredible events for a church this size and with no budget.
Yeah. No, Daryl does an amazing job with the art.
She does. And let me tell you a little about Daryl for those who don't know her. Daryl Golden is artist and a member of this church. Daryl is both a painter and a sculptor. In painting, she works primarily in acrylics. Daryl and I have worked on many projects together, and what I always love about it, if I'm going to be preaching, I can go over and say, "Hey, Daryl, how about I'm preaching on Mary Magdalene?
Right.
What can you come up with?"
Right.
And she then does all our research on Mary Magdalene, and then the next thing I know, I have a big, probably 14 by 24 acrylic painting of Mary Magdalene.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right. And a Mary Magdalene that she has researched and understood, so that the painting that comes out is a painting not of an an image, but an interpretation of the life of Mary. I really challenged her when I was preaching, and we were going to do something where I wanted to talk about people's overcoming new challenges physically or otherwise. And I learned a story of a famous composer who was deaf in his final years and could not hear. So they sawed off the legs of the piano so that he could feel the vibrations.
Yep.
Well, he composed this wonderful, wonderful symphony. And in the composition, the audience was told, but he was not. He conducted it. But the audience was told that there's another conductor working behind him, and that's the conductor that the orchestra will follow, because otherwise his tempo is off. So he's conducting, and it's beautiful music and everything. So that comes to the end, and he's still conducting, and they're all through, but it was like 4 or 5 seconds. Everyone in the audience was asked to wave a hanky at the end of it if they liked the piece, because he couldn't hear the applause. So they waved a hanky. So I said, "Hey, Daryl, I need a picture of a hanky."
Right.
And so I think she was really mad at me after that. But we got this wonderful piece, and Doug Holder managed to make it wave on the screen, and it was a wonderful story of faith and a wonderful story of adaptation and how we may still create, even in the times of our lives where we feel that so much has been taken from us, that the gifts from God are so massive.
Yeah. And it's great that she's able to interpret that with her art and make you feel something with her art as well, you know?
Yes, it evokes an emotion. It's you know, so much of what we do these days, and even in our faith, we try to intellectualize it. And certainly, I am a proponent of that. I mean, I think one should be vigorous in our theology. But that does not mean that we can't look at a picture of Christ and not be moved.
Yeah.
And that brings me to Matisse. Matisse, can I give you some background?
Yes, of course, yes.
Okay. Matisse was born in around 1870, thereabouts. Died in 1954. So he crossed 2 centuries. He believed that he prayed through his pencil. Isn't that a wonderful line? He prayed through his pencil.
Yeah.
And by that he meant he would go out in the morning to do his morning prayers, and he would bring his sketch pad with him, and he would pray.
Yeah.
He also said he used his paints. That was his faith. That's how he expressed his faith. So this year for Lent, we used a study on Matisse and Lent, meditations on Lent. And as part of it, we, of course, studied the text involved and then studied the art itself. So the first hour was where we spent in studying the text, and the second hour, or 2 or 3, was spent in creating art. And I led the first hour, and then Daryl led the rest. And that culminated in a number of pieces that where we studied the technique. In his final 10 years of life, he was no longer able to paint for some reasons. He had a surgery that left him without inability to paint. But he could still cut. So he would use scissors on paper and create things. And on Easter morning, we will have some pieces hung in the sanctuary that are replication in our own humble way by the students to show Matisse's artwork. But it involved a lot of tracing of his work, not to copy it, but to appreciate it. And I did one, and I noticed in doing it, I began to really appreciate the strength of his lines, and in ways that I wouldn't have otherwise. Yeah. So there'll be Holy Week, and then Eastertide will have further Matisse.
Yeah, well, that's so interesting. So during Holy Week, do you want to explain what Holy Week is for people?
Thank you. I'm sorry.
It's
take
okay.
it for granted. Inside language.
Yeah,
right?
No, it's okay.
Okay, that Holy Week is the week between what we call Palm Sunday and Easter. Palm Sunday reenacts the Sunday that Jesus came into Jerusalem and the palms were laid for him and so on. Many people are familiar with that story. During Holy Week, which is the intervening week, there's a lot of study that goes around what happened that week. And the Stations of the Cross will, in some ways, interpret that. I think it's important to take the time during Holy Week to look at that. Now, there are a number of other activities. There is Palm Sunday begins with a cantata by the choir, which is always powerful.
Yeah.
Then then we open the Stations of the Cross that afternoon.
Yep.
And then on Thursday is the Living Last Supper, which will be a original piece written by Bob Putnam based on the Last Supper. And then Friday, Good Friday, of course, is usually there'll be service that evening.
Yep.
And then followed by Sunday morning with, I think we're having,
There's two services. Yeah. Sunrise and then 11 a.m.
Yeah. So, and an exciting, Easter becomes all the more beautiful if you have gone through
I completely agree.
Yeah, with the week before.
Yeah, because before Tuscaloosa, I hadn't done the Stations of the Cross, at least from what I remember. So then when I did it, and I walked through all the stations, and then I went to Good Friday service, and it just put it all more into perspective for me, and I was able to visualize it all, because I'm a visual person. So then I'm able to see what this is, and not just read about it or hear about it.
Yeah, and the celebration of Easter.
Yeah.
Becomes real.
Yes.
Because you've invested yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting somebody has to come to every single event.
Yeah.
Although I am looking for volunteers to cover some of these stations. But I think the more you invest yourself, whether you're at home praying each day, I don't know how you do it. I mean, it's very individual.
Yeah.
But we live in a visual society. And I think I'm a reader, but reading alone does not conjure the emotions that a visual does, whether it's theater like Thursday night, which will be the Living Last Supper, or if it's music like we'll have on Palm Sunday, or it's the artwork, which we'll have during the Stations of the Cross. All of these are artistic expressions of an inward emotion that great talented people have invested so much in creating.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And we're the fortunate recipients.
Yeah, that's for sure. So can you tell us what someone would expect if they show up to Stations of the Cross? What are they going to expect when they first walk in?
Well, when they first walk in, they'll come into the entryway of our church, and in there there'll be a registration table. No big deal. But we want to greet you, and we will review for you what you're about to experience, because we realize people come with varying levels of experience on this. And you will also receive either a booklet or a package that will have papers in that describe each table, and they will describe the scripture that's involved with that particular table. There will be 2 art pieces there, one representing that is Daryl Golden's work, and then the other is, as Daryl says, her very humble attempt to repeat the basic lines from a Stations of the Cross that Matisse composed for the Chapel of the Rosary in Venice, Italy, which he considered his masterpiece, by the way.
Wow.
But those 2 pieces will be next to one another, and I think are going to be very interesting, because some will speak to one person, and then
right.
the other in a different way. And then there will be a table next to it, and on that, draped in black, and on that table will be some items, but mostly we encourage, and when you come to that table, there will be scripture that we encourage you to read and reflect, visually see what's there, and then we encourage you to ponder. Mm-hmm. You'll also be given a pen you can write down. It's your diary or meditation guide. No one else will see it. Mm-hmm. And then you will continue that, and that's the same pattern in 9 of the 10 stations. At the 10th station, you will be seated in a chair facing an easel that will have an acrylic painting that Daryl did of the head of Christ. And on that one, we just encourage you to sit there and meditate on that. Mm-hmm. Wow. And then you will leave. And of course, we will be asking you, was there one station over another that you really preferred? You don't have to answer that question, but it helps us understand what triggered what. Mm-hmm. And last year, the Vale of Veronica was the one that was probably the most intriguing for people.
Wow. It's interesting to also know what different people, like, not favor, but what moves them the most too.
Yeah, it helps you understand what kind of emotions are evoked. Yeah. And will help us further strengthen another display that we might do. But again, there's no pressure to do this. But I was amazed how many people wanted to share, and and I think some of them were frankly surprised that they came out of, well, I was asked and I think I better go, and then they decided, oh, well, this did speak to me.
They're going to say, I listened to the podcast and I thought I should go.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because even though this is oral presentation, we actually have eyes in your home and we know you are listening. So we're taking attendance, and we will check
we will
again.
know.
We will know.
So what are the dates again?
Well, the dates are complicated, so we will have, at every opportunity, there will be a list of all of the activities for Holy Week, mm-hmm. including the Stations of the Cross, and they will show the dates the stations will be open. Yep. There will also, we're working with you, Caralyn, on some an invitation that that we're really pressuring people that where we hand out and say, here's it. Yep. If you have a group that wants to come and it doesn't fit in any of the schedules, then by all means contact me. And we'll do everything possible to arrange a time for you to come through. Yeah. We're just trying to work between all of the activities that are going on in the church.
There's so many, especially that week.
Yeah. Well, Holy Week's a busy week. But to those listening, do start out Holy Week with Palm Sunday, because the music will be incredible. The cantata is always very, very exciting and impressive, and sets the tone. Yeah. So that's what we are encouraging you to attend and be part of, and see what the the evolving artists in our community of faith are working on, and we hope that everyone will come.
Yeah,
if you
I
got
hope
any
so.
questions, they can contact me or through the church, or I'm easy to find on Sunday mornings.
Yeah, and I'll have the times listed in the description of the podcast as well, just so people can easily access that.
Great.
Too.
And again, if you have a small group that wants to have a private tour, now a small group, I won't do a private tour for one. Well, it depends on who it is.
If you're special.
Yeah, if you're really special. No, we will very much try to accommodate you. But we do have to staff each of these, so for that reason, we're just not open, from morning to night.
Yeah.
And there's always something going on, and we don't want to. We want to be respectful of all the activities that are going on.
Yeah. Well, thank you for talking to me about this today.
Thank you for having me and for listening to the artist community in our own community, and we invite everybody to come.